Hey, Mouse. So welcome back to Favorite Friday. For this case, we have another couple duo. I can't really say a couple because they're really mother and son. So that's kind of like the first um duo that I've covered on this channel that I can think of. Of course, there are multiple believed victims from these two, and so of course there are three locations that these two are said to have done their victims, like ended our victims' lives. So with that being said, I'm going to cover all the information I could possibly find. There is a lot, and I can already see this video being 30 minutes long due to how much information I was able to find. Of course, sources down below as always. Credit to everybody who I got information from. And so with that being said, I'm going to quit my rambling and get right into it. So Sandra Singers, because she's the mother of this case, she was born July 24th, 1934, and she was the second youngest. Apparently, she would have two older siblings who had already left the house, and then dad died apparently when she was one, and then the mom would turn to prostitution in order to take care of the kids. So, of course, I guess prostitution wasn't paying enough for the bills, so then, of course, the family eventually becomes homeless, and they went to foster care. She gets adopted and goes under the name Sandy Chambers, which apparently, so then during these years, apparently she's like very popular in school, very well liked. Of course, however, unfortunately, she was shafted. So around the time that Sante had to graduate high school, apparently her biological mother was trying to reconnect, but of course she wasn't having any of it. Her biological sister would later come out and say that she apparently was very abusive whenever she did not get her way, like would go into a full-on rage. And apparently would try to hurt her with fire and even hurt animals. So then, of course, around 1956, specifically May 9th, she gets married to her high school sweetheart because she tells him that they're pregnant. Of course, they're being in the mid-50s. Obviously, being pregnant out of wedlock, that's kind of a big no-no. And so once he realized that she, in fact, was not pregnant and did that just to get him to settle down and marry her, they divorced. She then gets remarried November 9th, 1957, so pretty fast to another man. And then she has a child with that man named Kent, and the child's name is Kent Walker, and he was born September 27th, 1962. And apparently, I guess they were living in multiple homes while her and this mystery man were married, because apparently she was over setting fire to every single house that they were staying in while married, and she would get a huge insurance payout. Her and this husband were said to eventually get divorced, and then she took Kenny to go live in Palm Springs, and she got breast implants and wore black wigs. Apparently, like I said earlier, she had a little shoplifting problem in high school. Apparently, she would have this shoplifting problem even in adulthood, and apparently that caused her to get divorced again. So in the 1970s, she wants to meet this man by the name of Ken Kimes. Legally, he's Kenneth Kimes Sr. And apparently she sees him in a magazine for world's richest bachelors or whatever. And so she starts paying attention to him. Apparently, she started wearing white around him, which white apparently was his favorite color, and apparently Argardia perfume, because apparently she found out he liked the smell. So then apparently they start dating, and he hires maids, because apparently she starts living with him. So the two of them would start dating, and apparently they would start to hire maids because, once you start getting rich, apparently they were at the point financially where they could afford maids because, maids aren't cheap. However, these maids that apparently they were hiring were actually illegal immigrants from Mexico because they were living in California, and she would go over to the Mexico border and get women to come over illegally. And obviously they couldn't go to police and report what was happening. And apparently she was keeping them trapped in the house, kind of like a prison. So essentially she has these people as captives and is not paying them. So obviously we are going to get back to that, but I had to cut out to something else. Apparently she would get arrested for stealing a mink coat, even though she could afford it, because like I said, they were rich. And Ken Jr. would apparently also steal a men's coat, even though, again, they could afford it. So then Sante's over here skipping trial for the next 5 years, creating fake doctor's notes. Ken Sr., his trial, eventually the charges were dropped because the man whose coat he had stolen had died. It's I guess hey, if they're dead, then we can't really press charges against you. And so Sante apparently skips trial apparently after the verdict was read, and apparently the charges were dropped because apparently it was in the state of California back then. It was illegal to convict somebody if they were not in the room at the time of the conviction. So in 1975, Sante gives birth to Kenneth Jr., who's the son in this duo of killers. Okay, just heads up on that. And apparently Ken Sr. was like, listen, telling his friends, I don't want to marry Sante because I know she's asking me for the money. And remember, he was married before he met Sante. So I'm going to leave my money to the kids for my first marriage because I guess he felt they were more deserving of it than Sante. So again, this shoplifting thing didn't stop just because she had a kid. So she's over here taking Ken Jr. with her to the stores to shoplift, and she's putting the stuff that she was stealing into his stroller. So basically, he's an unwilling accomplice. So then apparently the trio, so Sante, Ken Jr., and Ken Sr., they all moved to Vegas. Apparently, they're one of the immigrants, apparently named Robert McCarran, apparently was able to escape and went to the police despite, like, regardless of the fear of being deported, because being deported was better than dealing with Sante, because apparently she was said to be pretty sadistic. They go to the police. She obviously gets arrested for slavery, because that's the legal term for what she was doing. And she only gets sentenced to 5 years in jail, whereas apparently Ken Sr., I guess, was somehow able to get a lighter sentence, I guess you could say, because he only gets 3 years probation, a $70K fine, and mandatory alcohol treatment, or I guess recovery, for the slavery charges. So Sr. retires and then puts Ken Jr. in a private Catholic school. Sante had been released in December of 1989 after serving only 3 years. Then after she gets released, apparently Ken Jr. is in high school, and so she has him switch high schools. So I guess she now has control back over him now she's been out of jail. And then he enrolls into the University of California at Santa Barbara in the fall of 1993. And then March 28th, 1994, apparently Ken Sr. dies at 74 years old. As you can imagine, like he said, everything in the will, like he intended, went to the kids of his first marriage. So Sante didn't get shit. And then Ken Jr. dropped out of college to help take care of Sante because obviously her little, I guess, meal ticket had now died. So in 1996, I guess Ken Jr., who's now an adult, and Sante, they proceeded to go to the Bahamas because for like some money, I guess, regarding out of Ken Sr. that they thought they were entitled to. And they meet a man by the name of Saeed Basil Amin. Now, I'll put the name on the screen because I don't even know how to pronounce that correctly. And if I didn't, I'm so sorry. He essentially denies them a loan. And then apparently, I guess this angered them. So then they proceed to drug him and then drown his body into a bathtub at a hotel while this is in the Bahamas. And then they apparently dump his body, and his body has never been found to this day. But that's something they would later go on to admit to. So then later that year, there was a by the name of Elmer Holmgreen, who apparently was asked by Sante and Ken Jr., can you burn that house for us in Hawaii for insurance? And of course, that's insurance fraud and also arson. So of course, he's telling the police this because that's illegal. And then he went missing shortly after. Now, whether he was ever found out to be alive or dead, it did not say. So Sante, because, just full of audaciousness over here, she took out a $250,000 loan under the name David Kasdan. And David Kasdan apparently was a real person. He was born December 31st, 1934. Apparently, he was a friend of the family. And obviously, he eventually is getting letters in the mail about this loan that you took out that you need to pay back. So, of course, he's telling the bank, oh, this loan isn't mine. I don't know who put it under my name. So then his account gets frozen. And then they see that the money got sent to Sante. And Sante apparently threatened David to go along with the loan fraud. Because technically, that's what she was doing. She was committing loan fraud. So then one day, doesn't say what specific day, apparently Ken Jr., when he later tells, after they get caught, because they eventually get caught, otherwise I wouldn't be telling the story, him and this guy named Sean would apparently go to David's house. And I guess originally Sean was apparently staying in the car, but then Ken Jr. decided, no, you're going to be involved in this today. And so then he goes to David's house. David, I guess, opens the door. He shoots David. Also, that kills him. He tells Sean to come inside. Sean sees the body on the kitchen floor from where David was shot. And it says, go put David's car in the garage so we can load his body in the garage without any witnesses. So Sean, surprisingly, actually does this. So then they drive David's car to the nearest airport, leave his car at said airport, throw the gun that was used to kill David in the sewer, and then they proceed to go buy flowers to go send to Sante, I guess to show that the job had been done. So the police eventually go to the house that the bank was told that I need the loan for, and they find that this house has actually been set on fire, but by, of course, Sante, because who else. So then they go to the notary who approved of the loan. And she tells them, well, I was told that Sante had power of attorney over David's name. So she was basically signing shit over because David, I guess, couldn't. And then so then, of course, the notary apparently also tells police that I also signed on the house for a man by the name of Robert McCarran. So then, of course, they find this Robert guy at a homeless shelter, and he tells them that, hey, I used to work for Sante, and this guy named Sean was the chauffeur, and that I would get beat up whenever I was doing my job. And that apparently Sean would apparently admit to this and say that he bought Ken Jr. a gun. And this gun, as you can imagine, is the same gun that was used to kill Dave. So Sante and Ken Jr. were in Florida or on the way to the Bahamas because Ken Sr., the father, apparently had left some money that they thought, again, was theirs, which is why they killed the first guy. But instead, they then go to New York City to meet Irene Silverman, who was then 82. And apparently they find about Irene through a magazine. And so Irene was born apparently April 17th, 1916, New Orleans. Her father was an alcoholic, and so she would often go with her father to the bar, because that's where alcoholics go, to the bar. And apparently this is Apparently, here at the bar when she was young, she learned to get like whatever she wanted, and then her parents would eventually like split because you can only deal with being with alcohol so much. Her mother would decide to put her in ballet classes. And so ballet classes, even nowadays, are like hell expensive. And she didn't make enough, even back then for those standards, because she's a single mom and women are kind of limited as to what kind of jobs they could do back then. And so she really wanted her daughter, I guess, in these ballet classes. So she would actually make the costumes, I guess, for free. And that was your tuition for your daughter to be in my class if you're making our costumes. So I guess for her, that seemed like a sweet deal. So just had to pay out of pocket like everybody else. So that's what she did. And then apparently when Irene is like 25, she meets this guy named Sam and they get married in 1941. So then while they're still married, she proceeds to apparently turn their home into like luxury apartments. So I guess they had like a big ass house because apparently that there was like a bunch of different apartments that people could just stay in and rent out for apparently like $6,000 a month. And so Sam unfortunately dies, and apparently it's put into the newspaper. And this is how apparently Sante and Ken Jr. find out about Irene. So then they proceed to call Irene and tell her that, listen, you want a contest and we need your social security number. And of course, luckily Irene was smart enough to like not give that. So then they find out Irene's assistant's number and they say we need to do a background check on her. And of course, the assistant was also smart enough and did not give this woman's social security number out. So on June 14th, 1998, Ken Jr. comes to New York City, right? He's under the name Manny Guerin, also a fake name. Comes with $6,000 in cash and a reference. The reference turns out to actually been a woman that Irene apparently actually knew. So to make this seem more credible, obviously that reference is obviously fake. And of course, Irene, as you're supposed to when you're a landlord, I guess is proper title. She asked for an ID and a credit application because, make sure you are who you say you are. And of course, he's showing her the cash and he's like, as you can see, I have the proof that I can clearly pay for this rent. Because normally I need a reference or confirm proof that you are who you say you are. She lets him move in after seeing that this man does in fact have $6,000 just right there to pay. So then, of course, Sante, the mother, she is there too, except she, of course, is playing Eva and she is Manny's, which is Ken Jr.'s assistant, right? Instead of his mother. So then of course, Irene had let them two move in, but she was trying to get Ken Jr. like where's the credit check? I need the credit check to like prove that you, I guess, have good credit because I guess these type of apartments you need to show a decent amount of credit in order to be able to stay here. But I let you slide because I saw that you had just $6,000. So then he kept saying that he's going to get it to her ASAP, and then she would notice because she had cameras in his hallways at the apartments. She would notice that Sandra, who she knew as Eva, was over pretty much a lot. And so Irene, sorry. So then Irene would also notice that Ken Jr. and Sante would avoid any security cameras that were in the hallway. So that's obviously a red flag. And so then apparently July 4th, still 1998 here, apparently she would have some friends over for a small little 4th of July get together. And apparently there was somebody over here who was writing a biography about her life because, she's 82. She figures, I guess, I don't have much time left. And sadly, how right she was, because she would apparently tell her friends about the group. I assume this is still on the 4th. And then apparently she officially evicts them on July 5th. So then Ken Jr. would wait for her to walk down the hallway by herself. Sante would actually stun her with a stun gun. So this is a team effort here. And then Ken Jr., he was the one who actually strangled her to death. Then they proceeded to put her body in a duffel bag, put it in the car, and then apparently they dumped her body behind a gas station in New Jersey. So Sante apparently calls Sean, yes, the same Sean that helped, I guess, Ken Jr. kill David. Yes, that Sean. Calls him and says, hey, do you want to manage an apartment? Come to NYC from, I guess, wherever he was at, and also bring a gun collection. Because I guess Sean just casually had a little gun collection. So then he goes to police about this, and they also set up a little sting, and police fly him out, and then Sean's like, meet me at a hotel. But obviously that's part of the sting. So around the same time this is all happening, Irene is declared missing because apparently she's a very active woman despite being 82 and is constantly like she's never really goes anywhere alone, I guess due to her old age. Ken Jr. is very quickly a suspect. They let out a release of this guy who they believe is Manny because that's what they know him by as Manny because that's what Irene's tell everybody is. And then apparently there's an agent who just happens to be watching this news report and realizes this Ken Jr. So of course both of them deny that they even know Irene or have even met this woman. So they find the car the next day, and in this car we have, and I quote, a gun, a stun gun, $22,000 in cash, a date rape drug, fake social security cards, and forged power of attorney papers to basically give Sante power of attorney over Irene. And then apparently there were like 13 notebooks which had diary entries from stuff that Sante would write regarding the murders, I guess like planning the murders and stuff. And one of the entries apparently said to kill DK. DK believing to be David Caston because we don't know anybody else involved with the initials DK. And David Caston is a confirmed victim of this pair. So then LAPD, which is Los Angeles police, they show up to New York apparently like weeks later trying to connect David's murder to these two. And so none of the weapons that they do find are any of the murder weapons used in the murders. And then apparently police are now looking for Sean, even though he was supposed to be involved in the stunt with them, because apparently his name is mentioned repeatedly in these notebooks. So I guess they're trying to figure out how much involved is Sean in this. So on May 18, 2000, both of them are sentenced to a combined years of 250 years, not for all three murders, but for just David's murder. Because I guess they're doing like one murder trial at a time because you don't commit all these murders in different states. We got to do one case at a time here. So then California, understandably, wanted to convict the pair because we not going to forget you just committed a whole other murder in our state too. As if that 250 years wasn't enough. So then apparently David goes on to an interview where apparently he holds the interviewer hostage for like 4 hours, saying that his mom better not get sent to California because California is a death penalty state, and knowing them, they're going to try to execute my mom for what we did to David. So then he gets sentenced to 8 months of solitary confinement. In 2001, a movie about this whole like murder saga, I guess, gets made, and it's called like Mother Like Son. In 2004, the trial for David's murder officially starts. Sean, by this point, apparently has disappeared, and I don't see any more reference about Sean after this, so he may or may not be a victim of them too. I don't know. Maybe they hired someone else to kill him. Who knows? Somebody knows, please let me know, because I always wonder what the hell happened to Sean. So Ken Jr. apparently was actually turning against his mother, because they've been a team this whole point. He's turning against her. Just as long as neither one of us get the death penalty, I'll testify against my mom. So then Sante would try to claim that, listen, he's only testifying against me because they threatened him with the death penalty. I guess that he didn't. Apparently Sante was talking to the media so much that the judge was like, hey, you need to stop. Like, you're banned from talking to the media, just stop. So then, of course, you can imagine both of them get sentenced to life for David's murder now. So in 2006, another movie would get made by this case. Now there's been some little updates, I guess you could say. And it was called A Little Thing Called Murder. Sante apparently would die in May of 2014 due to natural causes. And, of course, while in jail. And then Ken, obviously, he's still in jail, still alive at the time of this video. And Irene's body, in case you're wondering, yeah, still never been found to this day. As far as all the confirmed victims, David's the only body that we have that has been found. So yeah, with that being said, definitely know what you think down below. I know this case is probably at least a good 30 minutes. We'll see, when the finishing time is. If it's not 30, at least a good 20. And so with that being said, let me know your thoughts down below. If you know anybody involved in the case, if Irene, even if you were like a kid, I don't know, just any memories that you have of any of the victims, that definitely will be great. If you knew, I guess, either of our killers personally, let me know. If any of y'all have been in prison with Sante while she was still alive, I guess let me know on that, because, see like how she was in jail before she, of course, passed. And so with that being said, that's all I have for the Mommy and Clyde case. So with that being said, if y'all have any more killer duos, I guess that would be the proper term, I should talk about, definitely let me know. And that's all I have. I cover females 6 times a week. Subscribe for more fail females, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
So if I play dead, will you regret everything that you did, that you said? I don't think you understand what you're doing, and my heart's black and blue from the bruising. I feel like when I'm with you I'm losing. I feel like you think that this amusing, sitting there gaslighting and confusing. Was it me? Is it me? Am I deluded? I'm the one who's always sorry, the conclusion, even though I offer all of the solutions.